Next week, we will not have the Pastor's Cup because it's Easter and we're having the sunrise service, hopefully out here. And then we're having breakfast, and then we're having an Easter egg hunt before the worship service. So I don't know, I touched that, so it may be all cattywampus. You might want to go look at it. And be sure it says heat. We need a fireplace. I'll see if we can work that in. And so we won't have this, but then the next Sunday it'll be the 7th, I think, then we'll pick back up. So we'll have Pastor's Cup. And last week was our all-time high number. I think we had 19 by the time it was over. So that was good. All right, so the other thing is, I just want to say there is, I'm not going to say any names, but we have some members who have a great need for jobs. So if you know anything about any jobs, they're willing, I think, to do most anything. So if there's anything you know about, just let me know, and I'll pass it on to them. So anyway, any other announcements you've got to make? Anybody? John?
I'm told that Terry Pruitt is in hospital. He's had a heart attack.
He's had a heart attack at Harris.
I'm not sure which hospital.
Well, that's where he usually is, so I'll check on him and I'll go over there this afternoon. Check on him. Thank you.
When did that happen?
Yes.
Oh, it happened a couple of days ago. Oh, I hadn't heard about
Is he
it.
doing okay?
I'm not sure. It was through Robert.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
H. Robert Williams.
Okay. And I was going to show you my cup because I thought, I don't know if you're like me, but you know, you read the news online, and it's like one article says, this is what's going to happen in the election, and the next article says the exact opposite, and it's like, so what, you know? And so this is that scripture from Jeremiah, for I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans to give you a future and a hope. And I thought, today, maybe that's what we need to hear. I like your glasses. And so
What's it say on that other side? Just
it's
J?
just a J 2911, Jeremiah 2911. And so I don't even know where this mug came from, but anyway, so I thought, well, that's a good message for today. So, but I was talking to a friend over the weekend, and he was telling me something hopeful, and I don't know if I don't want to offend anybody in here, but he said that a lot of the polls that they're doing are focused on certain group, and it wouldn't be the group that would be more, that would not be leaning towards Trump. They're focusing on groups where that's his stronghold, if that makes sense, like older white
supremacists.
Huh? Supremacists, that's right. The Christian nationalists and white supremacists. That's who they're polling, not. But he did say, and if you remember before, I'm taking hope in these things, if you remember before Obama's second term in office, and the polls weren't sounding very good. And then that night, I mean, I was just shocked. He blew him out of the water, and it was like, oh my gosh, I knew this. So take hope. That's what I'm saying. Okay, I was hoping that Cindy would be here today. I didn't. She will be here eventually because her nephew is playing for us in worship again. He plays the cello, and he is quite an accomplished young man, and so he'll be playing, and I know she'll be here. But Cindy's parents were Wycliffe Bible translators. So they were the people that would go to other countries and translate. And in some countries, they had to actually create an alphabet and like some groups didn't even have that. And so they would have to go in and create based on their, what do I want to say? Based on their language, they would have to create an alphabet. Written, something that could be written before they could translate the Bible into that. And then I guess they had to teach it to them. I mean, they had to know what it was. I don't know. That's why I wanted her to be here, because she knows more about it. And she will be here. I'll make sure she comes one Sunday and we can ask her questions. But this is a book that her parents helped write. And so they were in India for a short time, and then I think it was Peru, is where they finally settled. They stayed, and her parents worked there. And so this says, when young Cameron Townsend tried to sell Spanish Bibles in Guatemala in 1917, he discovered the majority of the people could not read or write Spanish. They spoke Indian languages but had no written form of their mother tongue. I don't know why I didn't read this verse. It says it much better. Townsend quit trying to sell Bibles and began to live among one group, the Caciques. I'm not sure I said that right at all. He learned their complex language, created an alphabet, analyzed the grammar, and translated the New Testament in a remarkably short 10 years. Concerned about other minority language groups, he opened Camp Wycliffe in Arkansas in 1934, named for the first translator of the entire English Bible. The camp was designed to train young people in basic linguistics and translation methods. 2 students enrolled. The following year, after a camp with 5 in attendance, Townsend began work in Mexico. From this small beginning has come the worldwide work of Wycliffe Bible translators, the Summer Institute of Linguistics, JAARS, and Wycliffe Associates. Alphabet making and Bible translation have had strong ties since ancient days. Ezra the scribe adapted an alphabet to help the Jews read the scriptures when they returned from exile in Babylon, for they had become more familiar with Aramaic than Hebrew. Euphilus, Mashtab, and Desrhodes, Evans, and others stand like beacons in the history of alphabet making and Bible translation. Modern alphabet makers face an enormous task. Of the world's approximate 6,000 spoken languages, as many as 3,000 still are without a written form. Now, I don't know when this book was published, but I'm sure they haven't covered all 3,000 since then. Since their beginnings, members of the Summer Institute of Linguistics have made significant contributions to over 1,000 language projects in over 40 nations. The same 5 principles established by Cameron Townsend guide Wycliffe Bible translators and the Summer Institute of Linguistics today. No group is considered too small, no language too difficult. Pioneering continues either in the traditional sense or in breaking new ground in linguistics, typesetting, or computers. The highest standards of linguistics and translation are upheld. Service is stressed. Work is done in cooperation with governments, universities, and churches. God's work is translated for people in their mother tongue, the language of their hearts. Through it all, God is trusted for the impossible as God provides whatever is necessary to reach the Bible-less peoples of the world. During the creation of the Alphabet Museum, hundreds of people gave up their time and talent. The Museum of the Alphabet in Waxhaw, North Carolina, is another attempt to serve. A 4,900 square foot multimedia exhibition, the museum vibrantly tells the story of alphabet makers from ancient history to modern times. Photographs and paintings, sculpture and weaving, quiz boxes and models help the visitor grasp and appreciate the vast amount of information available. So this is about that museum, and it's very interesting actually. It has a lot of different, going all the way back to before, I guess, Mesopotamia, the beginning of alphabets. So anyway, they do amazing work, and you know from the heat is now on That's great. They know from what it said about the guy being there 10 years, that these are not things you run in and do like that. It takes a lot of time. And when I've heard people who are Wycliffe translators talk, I think I mentioned this before, but it seems that people who are musicians and mathematicians do really well in languages. Go figure. And so a lot of them that's their background. And I don't know about Cindy's parents, but there's Cindy, but anyway. So this is very interesting, and it's amazing work that they do. And it's hard to believe that in this world of technology, there's still that many languages that have no written form. And we talked about this one other time too, is the story that a lot of people know about Wycliffe translators, is the couple that went deep into the Amazon in Brazil, and if you remember, they ended up killing the man because they didn't have people just dropping in, and it takes time to build relationships, and the people were afraid, I think. And so anyway, they killed him. But his wife has had a really wonderful ministry, because of what happened to them. So anyway, can't remember their names right now. It's not for the faint of heart. You go into some places that are pretty scary, and I'm sure very, very difficult. So anyway, I'll be anxious for Cindy to talk to us and tell us what she knows about it, and about her family living there, and their parents being the translators. Any comments or questions about that?
Indeed, spreading God's word. Indeed.
Yes, indeed. Yes. We'll have to ask her if she knows what translation they translated to. Because I wouldn't think the King James would be the easiest one to translate, so it'll be interesting to see. Okay, so Randy borrowed my Bible with Apocrypha. He is now an expert on the Apocrypha. And so I told him we wanted him to tell us about what he's been reading. So just tell us some of it.
It's, the one that has grabbed me the most was, help me again, Sirach?
Sirach, S-I-R-A-C-H.
Yeah, Sirach.
I think that's how you say it, Sirach, yeah.
And it's kind of an parallel to Proverbs, and it just has a lot of proverbial things in it, and it's quite lengthy, but it covers all subjects. And I was kind of curious as I read it, and I got on the phone a little bit to see why that wasn't included with all the books, Old and New Testament. And it said it was because it was written too late. It's a new, quote, new book, and they had already selected all the Old Testament and New Testament books. So this came kind of after the cutoff. So that's why that book. I read this morning, I can't remember the name of it, but it was about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, which is not their regular names, but about them, and it's a chapter that's left out of Daniel, and this is an addendum to Daniel, and it's really just a praise to God when they put them into the fire, and how they got in there, and they were kind of, as they said, it felt like a cool mist in there, and all the other people that were out there watching, the fire was heaped so high, the flames were going up 75 feet and coming out of the furnace they were in. And as we know, there were some people that were so close, they were burnt themselves, they were destroyed. But it just talks about them being in there, and they were just kind of dancing around. And, they were just praising God and going, this is, you can't mess with God. And we're just standing there. And then the fourth person showed up in there, which they do designate, that was an angel that showed up and was just helping protect them. Anyway, it's just additions or left out because of dates to the Bible. So,
Interesting.
And I'm about halfway through it all.
Okay, yeah.
Good report.
Yeah, very good report, thank you for doing that.
Oh.
Well, and the interesting thing is, you know, if you've read much in the Old Testament, there's some pretty interesting stories in the Old Testament. So, it's not like they left it out because it seemed too fantastic or whatever, because there's quite some interesting stories. And some really hard stories in the Old Testament, especially. So yeah, well, thanks for talking a little bit about that, because most of us probably haven't read much in the Apocrypha, and I haven't. But I have been in services, I can't remember where I was, where they would have one of the scriptures from like Judith or Tobit, or you know, one of those books in the Apocrypha. And as we know, the Catholic Bible contains the Apocrypha, so it is part of their Bible. They don't think of it as this is something we never read or whatever. It is part of the Catholic Bible. So, and that's the interesting thing is that we've talked about is the people that made these decisions, the councils and all, you know, that had to discuss different points of theology and come to some determination about it. And then from those councils, you know, that was input into what would be chosen. And so for the Bible text and the books that would be in the Bible. So anyway, it was not a short process either, like translating the whole Bible. It took time. And you know, you're familiar with the term Gnostics. There were people that believed this, and there were people that believed this, and people that thought, you know, this. And so then they would have a council to discuss it. Sounds like a church, doesn't it? And create a committee to talk about it. And they would labor it to death, and then they would come up with some decision about, no, that is not, you know, it's a, what am I trying to say? Not, to them, not the theology that Jesus taught, I guess is what I would say, for the New Testament. And so they would come up with an opinion, and then that, as you know, that's why we have the Eastern Church and the Western Church and this church and that, because that's what happened. So there were some people that said, well, this is what we believe and we're going to go over here. You know, I have friends that are missionaries in Ethiopia, and I'll just admit they're missionaries with the Southern Baptists. And this bothers me a little bit because this is part of I guess they were the Coptic church, but anyway, they're part of people that believe the Bible and believe about Jesus and believe all that, but because they don't believe just like we do about it, they send missionaries to convert them. I have a little problem with that, but I don't tell my friends that. Because they are, you know, doing good things there, and one of them is he has developed a relationship with people that actually, I think in San Angelo, that do windmills that do water to get clean water. And so he's been trying to get those into parts of Ethiopia where, you know, there's not a lot of clean water and that kind of thing. And so it's good work, it's important, and they're doing something that is going to help a lot of people. And like that, for a while they were in Egypt. Well, so to be in Egypt, you've got to have a business that's not missionary. And so he worked with this company, and he was a sales rep for their windmills in Egypt. And so that was how they could be there, because on their visa or whatever it would say, that's what his job was. So, you know, there are a lot of good things going on, and I said, whoa. Sounded like a, it's not on fire, is it?
Not yet.
Not yet. As I said before, God works in lots of ways, and I don't think I am the judge of that. And so God works through a lot of different groups we may not always agree with, but God can still get good things done. So, but the one thing she talks about a lot, so my friends are not coffee drinkers. They are now, but they weren't. And I guess Ethiopia has this really, has a certain name, but it's this really dark, strong coffee that's just really strong. And so they've had to learn, because if you go to visit someone, that's what they serve you, and you can't say, oh my God. So, but anyway, it's interesting, but all that to say, that's a division of the church that happened because of these councils and people making decisions about this is the true theology, this is the, you know, and so that's a whole long study we could do about all that, and it's pretty boring. Some of the councils are pretty boring. So anyway, today is Palm Sunday, and we are still with Peter and seeing things through Peter's eyes, and so we'll see what Peter has to say about Palm Sunday. And being in Jerusalem, if you remember, he wasn't too excited about going there, and certainly wasn't excited about Jesus going there, but so we'll see where he is and what's going on with him. Yes, ma'am?
Excuse me, do we know where our readings are for today?
I don't know. I mean, I know Shannon sent all that, and Pam would know because she would have to take them off the printer and put them in the book. Okay. And Karen, did you get the words about oh, John's got them. Okay. Okay, very good. And Karen, there is in the Shannon's old office, there's a small palm. It's fake, but it looks really good. I didn't know if you wanted to use it on the altar or something. I don't know. I'm just.
I can fix this other thing maybe.
Okay. Okay. Palm Sunday. Okay, so anyway, we will be seeing what Peter has to say about it today, and how he's feeling about being in Jerusalem. There's a lot of different opinions about scholars about Palm Sunday in terms of how many people were there. Was it just a few people? Was Jesus trying to make a statement, and it was more it wasn't like, you know, we see the pictures that have been painted of it, and they're just people lining the streets, and, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And that may have been how it was. But there's a lot of discussion that's been written in scholarly works about what people think about that. And so, I don't know. It definitely did more to whatever it was, it did more to anger the people that were angry already, and to say, I mean, they were kind of afraid he was going to just be so popular, everybody would follow him. Anyway, all those things. And, but anyway, we do celebrate Palm Sunday, and in whatever form, and we know that that was the beginning of Holy Week, and that it wasn't going to end well. It's always hard to read a book when you know the ending, and so it's kind of hard. It's a bittersweet day, is the way it's been described, and I think it is. It's like when we celebrate Christmas and the birth of Jesus. It's a bittersweet celebration because we know that it's a hard story. And so today with Palm Sunday, so Thursday night, I want to do an advertisement for Thursday night because a lot of people have never celebrated Maundy Thursday. And when I first heard it, I thought, why would you say Monday, Thursday? I don't get it. And finally I realized that was not it. And it is the night Jesus, the disciples and Jesus ate together, and you remember Jesus washed their feet and said, I want to wash your feet. And Peter said, no, no, not my feet, you can't. And Jesus said, yes, I'm going to either wash your feet or whatever. And then Peter says, then wash all of me. Just wash all of me. And Peter, you just got to love him. And so it's the night we celebrate or observe that event in Holy Week when Jesus met with the disciples. So we do foot washing. You don't have to do it, but if you do it, it's painless. All you do, we'll demonstrate, but what you do is take off your shoes. You can do it with a friend. One of you washes and then you switch places. And you just pour the water over their feet and then dry them we have clean towels for everyone. Dry them off, put their shoes back on. So it's not like you're going to be getting soap and scrubbing their toes and all that. It's not like that. If you think about it, the disciples probably wore sandals, and that's how, they're walking in the dusty road. And so their feet are dusty and tired, and so you're washing off the dust. So then we will share communion. So it's a very, I think, special night, and I know it, like I said, some people aren't familiar with it, and we're not familiar with it. It's like, well, we just won't do that. But I think you would find it to be a very meaningful service. So, you found it? Oh, okay, good. And then Friday night, we'll have a Tenebrae service. That's where we read the scriptures, and then we put out a candle until it's dark. And so we'll be doing that. And then on Sunday morning, we've already talked about, it'll be 7 o'clock. You can come to the sunrise service. I'll be here. And then, and you can come to breakfast, and you can hunt eggs if you want to. And then we'll have worship second worship at 10. So it's a full week, but it's an important week. And I hope that you've had some Lent practice that you've chosen for yourself. I have found the little Lenten booklet that we passed out to be very good and a real helpful way to find different ways to observe Lent. So any questions about all of that stuff? I'd be glad to answer them.
I don't have a question,
Mm-hmm.
but I just have to comment on, he brought up one of my favorite stories about Meshach, Shadrach,
Uh-huh.
and Abednego in the fiery furnace, because when I was a kid,
Yeah.
in Sunday school, I'm no artist, but I discovered I could draw that, because all you gotta do is do this, there's the furnace, and then you get a red, yellow, and orange crayon,
Uh-huh.
and you can just do this,
Uh-huh.
and it was my favorite story. And so anytime they said, draw your favorite story on Sunday morning,
You drew
I
that.
drew the fiery furnace.
I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's
And I'm
perfect.
just, thank you for reminding me.
There you go.
Did you say that wasn't their real names? Did you
That
say
what?
That wasn't their real names?
No, and if I'd have been prepared, I told you, but that's their biblical names they were given.
Oh.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. So,
I'll look up their real names. One thing about that translation, and it carries over into these books, the Apocrypha, is the translators were very gender neutral.
oh,
Yeah, and when there were a lot of the comments that were made, of course, back then, women were kept in their place.
right.
And they make lots of comments about how the men were very whatever to the women and wanting them to stay in their place and not be in positions of leadership,
Mhm.
especially where you are.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, no.
yeah.
God forbid.
So, yeah, it's a very interesting translation.
Yeah. So, well, Terry did give me permission, so that's why. It drives me crazy. I have been in a service where a woman stood up to speak. No, the man came up first and said he gave her permission to speak, and then she came up and spoke.
I was at a Southern Baptist church, which I won't mention the name, South Main Baptist in Houston, years ago, which moved to become a very progressive
Yes.
church.
They did.
And I was at the Wednesday night service when they didn't have a center aisle, they had 2 aisles, I put a microphone on each one. We were having the yay and the nay over ordaining women.
Oh,
And the purpose was, I remember, if you remember the actress Jeanette Cliff George,
yeah,
they wanted to let her speak and give a message, and that caused the whole thing. And this one deacon from the church who everybody knew, and he was all powerful,
uh-huh,
he was on the negative side, and we were all, wait a minute, we know him. That's not him.
yeah,
And there was still a line on both sides, and he got up and he said, the reason I don't want women to be in leadership is when we wanna change the color of this room, the men have to form a committee, and the men have to decide what color, and they have to decide what kind of paint, and they have to get the budget, and they have to pass all this, and da-da-da-da-da. I said, whereas the women will just go, that would look better as a lighter shade, and they just get it done.
so he thought they would put him out of a job?
Well, and when he finished, everybody on both sides just sat down. Everybody was still lined up to speak. Everybody just sat down and voted, and it was unanimous, and she spoke a few weeks later.
That's great. That's great. Well, I heard an elderly gentleman one time with that issue about ordaining women to be preachers. And he stood up and said, and if you're not Baptist, this won't mean anything to you, but he said, women have the WMU. I don't know why they need to be, why would they want to be a preacher? Which is the Women's Missionary Union. But they did get a lot done through the Women's Missionary Union. When the big split, and I gotta say this quick because Karen's giving me evil eye, when the big split in the 70s happened in the Southern Baptist Convention, and the more conservative brethren, took over, and so they decided that they would get control of the Women's Missionary Union. Guess what?
Ooh.
The women had set it up where they couldn't get control of it. And I thought, there you go, don't you see? And so they never did. They were never able to, they tried, but they were never able to fire everybody and put in their people and stuff. So there you go. All right. Thank you all, and I'll see you in worship.